Well, I'm happy to say Ron Paul, former US politician and Republican candidate in the 2008 and 2012 presidential elections in the US, joins me live now. You're very welcome to the program, sir. The US intelligence report then into alleged Russian hacking. Some are describing it as weak, insubstantial, because the declassified version doesn't include any evidence. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think since Assange takes that position, I agree with him because I think he is telling us the truth. I'm not an expert on analyzing this, but I do have a lot of respect for Assange. You know, there was a major station or internet programming here that did a survey of the American people, and they found out that 80% of the Americans would believe Assange over our security, you know, our intelligence gathering. And from my own experience in Congress leading up to the Iraq War, I heard what our intelligence agencies were saying, and they did not tell us the truth. They misled us, and a tragedy occurred from that. So there's every reason for me to be very skeptical of what our intelligence agencies are saying. So I think most of what we're hearing now and all the back and forth here in the States has to do with politics and people who are very upset that they didn't win the election, and therefore they're turning it into this so-called political scandal, and I don't think they have much merit there. I don't think the evidence shows that those people who are saying the intelligence report proves certain things. I think it's all political grandstanding.
Should Washington have expected a backlash to this? And this is the point, because they've released a document with caveats that its conclusions could even be wrong.
Well, I wish there would be a major backlash against the deception. It hasn't occurred yet, but more and more people, like this one survey showed that a lot of Americans are very skeptical of it. But it should be, but there's a lot of people out there. There's a few things I don't agree with our president-elect, but I think he's a major factor in trying to bring sanity back to the relationship between the United States and Russia, which I would like to see, because I don't like to see unnecessary antagonisms when there's no merit to the reasons for being in dispute with another country.
American intelligence accused RT, our channel, of harmful influence on the US public. And let me just read out some of the examples. Giving platform to third parties, for covering Occupy Wall Street protests, and reporting on police brutality. My question is, does that make a news outlet a propaganda bullhorn, as the words were used, in America?
Well, hardly, because I think that the evidence doesn't prove that that is what's happening. But yes, I get charged with that all the time. If I take a position, you know, that there's some ulterior motive, and all I'm trying to do is to get to the bottom of things and find out what the truth is. But right now, I think that it's way overblown, and that there's no evidence that things are this serious. You know, my complaint over the many years has been our foreign policy, and there's a accurate historical report that from, you know, the beginning, from the end of World War II up until the year 2000, we, in our country, our government had been involved in 81 different elections. You know, it's not like governments aren't involved. But I think that my responsibility, and any responsible Republican or Democrat politician, should look to ourselves to make sure that, you know, we're being honest with our own people. But the propaganda and the machine and the media so often has been on the side of ignoring what we do and trying to put the blame on someone else. So in this case, I think there may be a little bit of smoke someplace, but I think it's accurate to say that what Assange said. They have no proof of anything, and it's just stirring up trouble for political reasons, trying to discredit the president-elect. And as I said, I was not a supporter of the president-elect, but I'm also a supporter of trying to sort out the truth from all the nonsense that's going on.
Can I just expand on that point with you, sir? Politicians we know from both major parties, the Democrats, the Republicans, are calling for Russia to be severely punished over the perceived hacks. Why does barking at Russia seem to unite the two old rivals in that way?
Well, it's this old thing about nationalism and patriotism, and everybody gangs up, and some people have a sense that these things aren't true, but they don't want to be. And I know what it feels like to be on the side of opposing what generally is accepted. You know, when I was opposing the Iraq War, I was called un-American, didn't support the troops, and I was a traitor and all these kind of things. So people use the old-fashioned method, which has been around for a long time. All governments tend to use it when they get in any trouble. They play the patriotism card, and if you don't do it, you don't support the country and you don't support the people. What we should, as a people, not only in our country, but around the world, I would like to see us all supporting the truth and quit politicizing it for special interest's sake. And we've always had some antagonisms here in this country, stirring up trouble, always looking for a war, somebody sometimes just supporting the military-industrial complex. But it does exist in all countries. There's always some people in there that, you know, wants to take the hard line and see the conflict. As a libertarian, I want to see the opposite. I want to reduce the confrontation, reduce the conflict, reduce the chance of hostilities, and that is why I have an institute called the Institute for Peace and Prosperity, because I think prosperity is what we all want, and I can't imagine anybody saying, well, we need war. And I think Trump was right the other day. Anybody who believes that having a war with Russia is a good idea is plain out dumb. So for somebody that wasn't a Trump supporter, you know, I'm complimenting him for saying what I think is the right thing to say, because hopefully that is the case. That does not mean that we don't have some people in this country antagonizing and some hardcore people probably in Russia or any country that will take a different position, but we should look for the position that is designed for the least amount of antagonism between countries, with a goal of having peace and prosperity and protecting the liberty of the individual.
Can we just turn to the mainstream media and the situation there with many media outlets which keep accusing Russia of producing this term fake news, even though the New York Times and Washington Post have published, and it's been said to be, inaccurate stories about Russia and found to be accurate in that way. Why are even venerated outlets like those two examples rushing to fuel the anti-Russia hysteria with what we know are flawed stories?
You know, I think that's been going on for a long time, because I look at just about everything our government says and the media, which is closely connected, as mostly fake news. But I think this is a great thing that's happened here in the last year or so, is that they went over the top, you know, by listing, you know, 10 organizations or so, including myself, on the front page of the Washington Post, saying that we're the producers of fake news because we've taken a position that shows a more balanced approach in dealing with countries outside America, or even have a different position with Russia. So they say we're the ones producing the fake news. But I think that we've sort of have been winning a little bit of that argument, because I believe they've gone over the top, because when you really sort it out with the American people aren't all that blindly trustworthy of our federal government, even though you won't hear that on our evening news, because there's still a lot of fake news out there. When I was in Congress, I figured my major job was trying to figure out, the truth about things and who was telling the truth, and it goes on. But I don't think this is new. I think it's been around for history. The stronger the government and the more the government is an empire where they're holding control over a large area in many countries, the more tenacious they are in controlling what the propaganda is and what is said. Because under those circumstances, the bigger the empire, no matter which kind, truth becomes a treasonous act to people. So you can't tell the truth about an authoritarian government. And unfortunately, throughout history, there's always been the authoritarians that want to run things. It just happens that libertarianism is the opposite. We want small government. We want the people to run things. And we would like to see the day where the antagonism between the countries doesn't exist. And I happen to be optimistic that that's achievable. So that's why I get annoyed when news get distorted and the fake news is out there. But right now, I think this whole story about the fake news is a good story that the people should be very cautious about what they believe when they see it on the evening news.
Ron Paul, chairman and founder of the Ron Paul Institute and Republican candidate in 2008 and 2012 presidential elections. Thank you very much for coming on the program, sir.